We're going to debunk the myth that you can hide anything in a book and a black child will never find it. We're going to promote telling stories, but not only telling stories, we're going to promote telling our own stories. One of the friends of this organization is Dr. Roy Corza, and he always quotes this proverb, that until the lion tells the history of his story, the tale of the hunter will always glorify the hunter. And that's why we're here today. We're here to say we've got our own people that have documented our own history, our own stories, our own current affairs, and we're going to celebrate them. And today is the genesis of that path, and we're going to continue on this journey until this is one of the great initiatives that ULP has been able to achieve. But I don't want to take the glory away from my chairman and founder, Mr. Khadebe, who's going to come and tell you about this. But at the genesis of every program, I always tell him this, that on the 28th of August in 1963, a young Baptist preacher was saying a speech that became one of the most powerful and influential speeches. But the speech was improper. People don't know that. It happened that during his speech, in the middle of his speech, he saw one of the ladies who was in the audience, who had performed earlier, a gospel singer, Miss Jackson, saw that he was losing the people. And he said, Martin, tell them about the dream. So Mr. Khadebe, I'm asking you again as we start this journey, Morris, tell them about the dream.
Thank you very much, Theo. I think Theo deserves a round of applause. As a CEO who carries all this work, we just dream. And you're right, I just dream, and all these young leaders now have taken over the whole of, let's get this one first right. Yeah, there you are. So these young leaders, actually most of them have come out of the ULP. ULP is about 10 years old now, and some of them were young, but now they are all running this institution, and all I need to do is just to dream. Anyway, the Bible says the old people will dream dreams. So thank you very much, Theo, and the whole team that is doing this great work. This initiative today is really exciting me. It's really at the heart of what ULP is about. It's as you said, Theo, you know, this myth that if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. We're going to debunk that. But more importantly, this forum, let me talk about this forum before I get carried. The purpose and the mandate of this forum is called ULP Authors Forum. And it's a program based on the Unleashing Leadership Potential philosophy of ULP. Now we're going to unleash a culture of writing. A culture of writing. I was just chatting with Prof. And I was saying, you know, Africans were civilized. In fact, civilization of the world started in Africa. Most of it, maybe my historians will correct me. But because we didn't have the culture of writing, we had oral culture. We told stories. But in the process, after 3, 4, 5 generations, you lose that. We need to get that culture of writing so that we may not lose the very essence of who we are. And this forum is also going to equip, encourage, empower, and promote the next generation of African authors. That's my passion in life, the next generation of leaders. Now we're going to have the next generation of African authors. And it's time to use the power of the pen and begin telling our own stories. And a lot of people, you see, I watch all the big media houses, CNN or Al Jazeera. Everybody comes to this continent to come and write about our stories. They come and research, whether it's our own animals or our own botanical lifestyle or even just our own way of life. They come all over the world to come and write our own stories. They even write it in the story, in the perspective they have. They even say Livingstone discovered the big falls, as if there was no people in Zambia that were there and in Zimbabwe that were watching the big falls all the time. So it's very important that we write our own story. So what are we going to do? It's very important. We're going to make sure that we encourage the creative writing, a lot of wisdom, making sure that these inspiring stories are written, and we're making sure that the stories are recorded. So how are we going to do this? We're going to do exactly what we're doing today. Today we're launching it. We're going to get seasoned writers, and we've got a lot of them in our nation now. We've got Prof. Marwala, we've got Bonang, we've got, I can mention a lot of them that have written great books, Teto, and all these seasoned African writers that have emerged now. But we're going to link them with young stars coming out of this ULP forum that have started writing and making sure that there's a kind of mentorship program in line with our philosophy of mentorship, so that we can be able, they can come here or online, listen to what, like the prof is going to tell us today, exactly what inspired him, and he'll be interviewed by Confidence, whom I'm going to introduce right now. And then after that, we will have classes here, workshops, seminars, which Confidence is going to run on our behalf, so that you can be taught on how to conceptualize a book and how to write a manuscript, how to tell your story. Because your story is unique. You don't have to copy anybody when you're writing a book. You just have to tell your own story. But you need to be the technique of doing it, and that will be useful. So the classes are going to be there, so keep on watching our ULP website, and all our platforms will be announcing them. The person who will be driving all this is Confidence. That man, you can see, is confident. Let's give him a round of applause. He's an author in his own right. He's got a publishing company. He works with ULP. He came to me and said, Babkhateb, I want to help. I want to be part of ULP. And when I looked at him, I saw that spark. You know, when I see a spark, it's just, and I said, God, come. And he's been lecturing at ULP programs. And then last year, towards the end, he said, you know, what else can I do? I said, start an authors forum under the platform of ULP. I just had a dream. It just came to my mind. And he took it, and he is now operationalizing it together with the platform of ULP. So he's got his own publishing company. He publishes books. He's published quite a few of the books here for our young authors. Now let me introduce Prof. He doesn't need to. He's Mr. 4IR. You know, when you started this journey of 4IR, I thought you were dreaming, honestly. Because I thought it's going to probably in 20 years' time. But the COVID brought it down very quickly. Even myself now, I can navigate myself on every Teams meeting, Zoom, everything, you know. But hey, you're a prophet. He's a prophet of 4IR. He doesn't need to introduce. He's done a sterling job in building a University of Johannesburg as a vice chancellor and as a principal since January 2008. You see, he's committed. He stays in a job. That's one thing that we always encourage. You know, don't jump up and down. Focus. His CV is great, and I'm not going to even read it. And because you know it, you can read it on your own and know what he has done. But he has traveled extensively. He has studied overseas. He studied everywhere. And he's been a visiting scholar even at Harvard University. And he's been all over. Oxford, Cambridge, British Columbia, all in these universities participated in other doctoral studies or done work. And what I like, and again, because he's a philosopher of ULP, he also unleashed doctors. He unleashed doctors. He's done 31 doctors. He supervised them, developed them, and made them their graduated as doctors. Let's give him a round of applause for that. And 47 master's students. Maybe these numbers are already increasing right now. This is what we're recording. So, without any further waste of time, Prof, thank you for coming. We really appreciate you coming here. I'm going to hand over to this young man, Confidence, and he's going to interview you on this great book. Let me show to everyone so that you go and get it. Go and get it. Closing the Gap. He's also written another one on leadership and confidence. When he was planning this, I said, go and get these books and read them. So that when you interview Prof, you show that you have read them yourself. Yes. So over to your confidence. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tate Khadebe. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Tate Khadebe for conceptualizing this platform. Indeed, he had a dream, and we are the ones, he's given us the baton, as all great leaders do, to run with the dream, to run with the vision. And there's a phrase that he likes, high impact. He always talks about high impact. Everything we do must be of high impact. And we truly believe that this program will be a high impact program, high impact not only for South Africa, but for Africa as a whole. Prof, they've already introduced you, but thank you so much. You're no stranger to ULP. You've been here before, and thank you for always honoring the invite when we ask you to come and share your wisdom.
On my bio that Baba Khadebe has forgotten. I met Mtate Khadebe when I was 16 years old. When I was in high school, he came to my high school looking for talented students. He gave me a scholarship. Wow. And this is actually 33 years ago. You know.
So it's been unleashing leadership potential since then.
Leadership potential for the last 33 years.
Wow, amazing.
As far as I know. You know,
no, that's leadership.
Before then.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Prof, I know the communication said we'll be talking about closing the gap, and we will. But, you know, here at ULP, we are obsessed with leadership. So we also picked up your most recent book, Leading in the 21st Century. So we'll be tackling both books today. I know we told you closing the gap, but as the author, I'm sure you are ready and always prepared. Wonderful. All right, so we're starting with closing the gap. Now, I always look at the title of the book to get insight into what is inside the book. So when we talk about closing the gap, can we discuss the gap? What is this gap? How far is the gap? And what do we need to do to close this gap?
Well, I mean, I have traveled all over the world. And one thing that has always struck me is that the African continent seems to be behind other continents.
Yes.
If you go and see productivity in Europe or in Asia, I always thought they were way ahead of us. That is a gap. Now, why is that the case? One of the reasons is because they have more educated people than we have. It's another gap. We need to educate our people.
Yes, sir.
And more. When you look at their leaders, they will be more educated than our leaders. Again, that's another gap that we need to close. When you look at the infrastructure that they have, whether it's connectivity, whether it is the number of universities that they have, whether it is the standard of living, again, those are gaps that ought to be closed.
Yes, sir.
Now, what must we have in order to close that gap? I think we must have leaders. I think leadership is very, very important. And one thing that we have not done as Africans is that we have not sat down and say, this is a deliberate program that is going to nurture future leaders.
Yes, sir.
The British have all their clubs, whether it is the Scouts, which are, instruments that they use to groom their leaders. Traditionally, we always had. If you look at traditional leadership, they will be telling a leader, you can't do that. You can't behave like that. You're going to be leading people.
Accountability.
You have to account to your people and so on and so forth. So we really have to nurture leaders if there is any hope for us to close that gap.
Just on that point, on leaders, in the beginning of your book, you mentioned a particular incident which was quite humorous, but when you think deeply about it, it's not so humorous. There was a member of the EFF who asked the deputy president, because he was speaking on the fourth industrial revolution, and he asked him, can you please take us back a little bit and talk about the first, second, and third? What has led to the fourth industrial revolution? And his answer was found a bit, wanting. And there was a comment, I think, from a dear member who said, perhaps he should call a friend. Prof, if you were that friend that he would have called, how would you have helped him answer that question?
Well, I mean, I must also first address that issue that all of us must learn.
Yes, sir.
Learning is one of those things that no one can ever finish. There's always things that we can learn.
Yes, sir.
In fact, this whole concept of continuous learning is actually a very important attribute of our time.
Yes, sir.
Now, coming to your question, if I was called to explain what the industrial revolutions are all about, the first industrial revolution was when the British decided that machines can be able to produce goods and services better than human beings. It happened in England, and it was harnessing, we call it mechanical energy. You use steam in order to generate energy. And that was actually something that had never really been seen before. And it replaced all these people who were working in textile industries. And they used to, it was heavy on labor. Lots of people used to work in these industries. And then obviously, like any other revolution, people were saying, this thing is taking away our jobs. These are what are called Luddites. Today, we use people who resist change, Luddites. It was a group of a trade union of people who wanted to destroy machines because machines were taking away their jobs. But of course, the Luddites lost. Many of them were actually arrested, and many of them were hanged. And the first industrial revolution moved.
Wow.
Then we came to the second industrial revolution, electricity and electric motor. Electricity to power our homes, and electric motor to power our factories.
Yes, sir.
Again, there were people who were not happy about this development.
Resistance to change.
In fact, these people were mainly in the candle manufacturing industry. They say, if you are going to give all these people all this light, what is going to happen to our industry? Of course, they lost. People are using electricity now.
Yes, sir.
Well, we sometimes use candles, but we ought not to be using candles.
Yes.
We have to fix our energy system.
Yes, sir.
Then we came to the third industrial revolution, which is electronic age. Now, the phones, the computers. And that automated the assembly line, the factories, and so on and so forth. Again, we do not have a homegrown large electronic company. There is no Africa version of Samsung, which is a Korean company,
Yes, sir.
or iPhone, which is an American company,
Yes, sir.
or Huawei, which is
China.
a Chinese company. We have to change that. We have to
Yes.
close the gap. Now we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Now the fourth industrial revolution is when technologies become human. Do things that are supposed to be done by human beings. Now it turns out that the chess champion today is not a human being. It used to be Garry Kasparov, a Russian chess grandmaster. Was defeated by Deep Blue, an artificial intelligence machine.
Wow.
The Chinese have their own chess called Go. Google, about 15 years ago, one of my students, Dr. Marwala, came to do a master's with me, and he says, I'm going to do my master's on a program that is going to beat a human being on the Chinese chess called Go. Of course, he did not succeed. Google succeeded, but after spending more than $1 billion to solve the same problem.
Wow.
So, doctors, now you have artificial intelligent machines that are able to read medical images better than doctors. So this is the fourth industrial revolution. The era where machines are doing things that are supposed to be done by human beings, better than human beings.
Wow. I mean, the question then becomes, I mean, one of the consistent reaction of us as human beings is resistance to change. So it happened in the first, second, and third. I saw a post on Facebook. It was, one of those where you see one image and they're comparing it to another image. On one side was a helicopter with a cameraman leaning out of the door, and he was shooting something on the ground. On the other side was a drone with a camera, and the caption said, in 10 years, both the helicopter pilot and the cameraman have lost their jobs. Yeah. Now, is it a genuine concern as pertaining to the fourth industrial revolution that majority of people or a lot of people are going to lose their jobs? There's a term used, which I find quite fascinating, silver collar jobs. So can you just extrapolate a little bit, the loss of jobs or, the pros and cons from a jobs perspective and then the emerging new jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. You are completely right, confident. There are three things that are going to happen to the world of work. Firstly, some jobs are going to disappear. And it is not a new phenomenon.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Khadebe would remember, he's not a young man, he will remember this, that in the 70s and when you went to high-rise building, there used to be somebody inside the lift who was employed to operate the lift.
Wow.
There were some weights that they were operating. And then they automated that.
Yes.
And they put that keypad. So everybody comes, and if they want to go to the 5th floor, they press 5.
Yes.
That job is gone.
Yeah.
For those who were there in the 60s, now we see robots. Before all those busy streets, you had people who were directing traffic. They were employed to do that. Of course, that has been automated. So some jobs are inevitably going to disappear. Secondly, some jobs are going to change. A doctor today will be a doctor that increasingly relies on technology to diagnose diseases. So they have to be trained to understand the traditional medical knowledge, but also to understand technology. Then there is a third, which are new jobs that are going to emerge. When I went to university in 1991, there was no such a job such as a data analyst.
Yes.
These are new jobs. Now, these silver-collar jobs are jobs that are where human beings increasingly rely on technology. These are human-machine jobs. These are the jobs that are going to emerge as a result of this change. So what we have to do in order for us to be able to capture all these new developments, we have to learn. We have to skill ourselves. I will repeat this statement, that no sane human being can ever finish learning. We continuously have to improve ourselves.
Yes.
We continuously have to be reskilling ourselves. We learn, unlearn, relearn, learn, unlearn, relearn. That is the new cycle of life.
Wow. Very interesting phrase you put in the book. Data is the new oil. Now, in previous decades, if you discovered oil, you were an instant millionaire. The comparison you make with oil and data, as data being the modern day oil, can you extrapolate a little bit on that?
No, absolutely. Data is the new oil, and the people who are exploiting data are not millionaires; they are billionaires.
Wow.
Mark Zuckerberg gives you a Facebook.
Yeah.
We think it is free.
Yeah.
I'm told that if you think it is free, and because you don't see any product being sold, you are the product that is being sold. So they are selling your data. It is the new oil. Nigeria is rich in oil, but it's a poor country. You know why? Because they never learned how to refine their oil. There was a story that in Nigeria, you will extract oil, it will be exported to England, go into oil refineries, and then it will come back as import. The same thing with data. Africa has a huge amount of data. 1.3 billion Africans generate data every day for Twitter, for Facebook, and on a lower level for Apple and many other companies. So we have the data, we have the people, they're generating the data. Do we have the know-how on how to refine this data and turn that data into products and go and sell that data the same way Facebook or Twitter or Google are doing with our data?
Now, on data, there's an issue that immediately also comes back, the issue of privacy. There was a slight controversy with the new WhatsApp policy, which many people accepted without reading, as most of us do. Now, when it comes to 4IR and privacy, because as you say, data is the new oil, so data is what is being mined. In terms of privacy, how secure are we in terms of securing our private information, and what are the risks?
Well, I mean, if you are on Twitter or you are on Facebook or you are using Google, you are actually not a private entity. Because there is a story that I read where somebody was in Silicon Valley and at Twitter, no, at Uber, and then I think they had a little bit too much to drink, and then I think it was the CEO said, "Let me take you to a special room." What is this special room? It's called God's Window.
God's window.
Because there they have all the Ubers that are on the road in the world. So just type somebody you know that uses Uber. Then the person says, this is the name of a person. And then they type, say, oh, no, the person is now driving in this road in Chicago.
Wow.
He called this person and say, are you in Chicago? He says, are you here also? I said, no, I'm in God's window. So we have already volunteered. Many of us have already given away our privacy. So this has nothing to do with issues of cybersecurity. But there are genuine organizations that do not want their data to be private. Banks, companies, and so on and so forth. There you need cybersecurity infrastructure to be able to protect your data. In that instance, are our companies and entities that want to remain private safe? I don't think so. And the reason for that is because in South Africa, we have not developed cybersecurity capabilities. Most of the cybersecurity tools that we use are almost all of them imported to South Africa, and we need to change that.
Now, there's a growing philosophy or movement, if I can call it that. One of the pioneers is Elon Musk. So he's got a company called Neuralink, which implants chips, for example, into the brain to do the connectivity between man and machine. And I think they call it transhumanism. Now, there's a lot of people who are fearing such advancements. They say that it's taking it a bit too far. What is your opinion on advancements such as transhumanism?
No, I think that is very important. By the way, I saw the video where he launched. We actually did a similar thing here in Johannesburg. There are papers that we published on this, where you have something called the EEG signal, device that you put in your head. Normally, when you go to the hospital and they put it in your head in order to see your brain activity.
Yeah.
And we wanted to see whether, just by reading the brain activity, you can be able to see which finger you are actually moving.
Wow.
So what Elon Musk has done, instead of putting an EEG signal device on the head, he's actually drilling inside the scalp of the head the chip that is able to read the brain activity. There are many good things about that, because with that signal, you can be able to predict Alzheimer. With that device, you can be able to predict before time certain types of brain tumors. You can be able to read blood sugar levels and so on and so forth. So there are many good things about that technology. I suppose there are ethical issues that we ought to consider here. Are we playing God? And those are difficult issues that we will have to grapple with going forward. Is it ethical?
Yes.
Is it completely safe?
Safe, yeah.
And so on and so forth. But I think the safety issue is a technological issue. And ultimately, they're going to make it very, very safe.
All right. There's something you mentioned. There's something you mentioned, I think in another interview, where we've been conditioned by Hollywood, especially about the machines taking over. You've got Terminator, different other kind of movies where machines are able to achieve autonomy, or I believe they call it singularity, where they're able to self-prompt, self-regulate without human intervention, where they're almost autonomous. Is that a possibility? And is that where we're going?
Well, singularity is basically a point when human beings are smarter than, when machines are smarter than human beings. That is the point of singularity. Now, the question that we ought to ask ourselves is that at that point of singularity, are we safe? Because it goes without saying that ultimately machines are going to be much smarter than us. They are already smarter than us in playing chess, in reading medical images, in playing all forms of games. The question is, if they are smarter than us, will they go and conspire to eliminate us? And that problem in AI is called the AI control problem.
Yes, sir.
That are we going to be able to switch on off the machine? And by the way, this is not actually far off. I think in 2016, at the New York Stock Exchange,
Yes, sir.
due to high-frequency trading using artificial intelligent machines, there was a flash crash, which means the New York Stock Exchange crashed and went up. They had to suspend it. Now the question is, where is the switch when algorithms start harming us? In that instance, it was harming people's savings. Where is the switch? Of course, we can learn. We had the same thing when we introduced electricity. Electricity used to be very dangerous, And what did we introduce? We introduced something called earthing, and normally if there is an overload, it will switch off. You know that if there's an overload in your house,
it happened recently quite.
Yeah, it will switch off.
Main switch goes, yeah.
But that is to protect you, because if it does not switch off, then the house might burn because there's too much power. There's a power surge somewhere else, So the same thing must happen to machines, that when they start doing things that are out of the ordinary,
Being chachara.
yeah, then some switch must switch them off so that they do not harm us.
Wow. You serve on the Presidential Commission on the 4IR. Now, what is our strategy as South Africa, our 4IR strategy?
Well, I used to serve because we have completed our work. We have submitted the report to Cabinet. Cabinet has accepted the report. It has been published on the government gazette. We came up with many good things. But there are 8 core recommendations of the 4th Industrial Revolution. 1, invest in human capacity development in the area of the 4th Industrial Revolution. Our children must learn how to code. They need to, and to code, you need 3 core skills: ability to think logically, ability to communicate primarily in English, because the syntax of almost all the programming languages I know is in English, and the ability to understand mathematics. So we need to develop those core 4th Industrial Revolution skills in all the levels of our educational system. Primary, even pre-primary, primary, secondary, tertiary, and even the people who are already in the workforce, they need to reskill themselves in these new skills. The second one, establish the National Artificial Intelligence Institute that is going to focus on the application of this technology to all areas of our economy, be it energy, agriculture. The drones are being used quite extensively in agriculture.
Yes, sir.
Manufacturing, goes without saying, all areas of our economy. Thirdly, we need to, our manufacturing sector must adopt these 4IR technologies to re-industrialize. The reason why South Africa has de-industrialized is because South Africa did not invest in the technologies of production. If you look at our textile industry,
Yes, sir.
it died because we can buy T-shirts from China at a fraction of the cost, because the Chinese had invested in the technologies of production. Let's invest in that. Number 4, avail and secure data. Whether it is data from our health sector, the X-ray images that our hospitals actually gather, collect those data, put them on a single database, secure them to protect the people, get our companies, whether small, medium, or large, to start developing applications where you could design an AI system that will look at images and make diagnosis.
Yes, sir.
You avail the data, but you secure it. Fifth, invest in 4IR infrastructure. Connectivity. Spectrum is very important for connectivity. Computers in our schools and so on and so forth. 4IR infrastructure is very important for our people.
Yes.
Then number 6, incentivize the adoption of these technologies. One American economist was asked, summarize the whole of economy, of the field of economy in one word. And his answer was incentives. You give people incentives, they're going to produce, they're going to buy, you are going to have demand and supply, the economy is going to grow.
Yes,
Incentivize people to adopt these technologies. What are some of these incentives? Tax breaks. The Chinese have something called the special economic zones. We have the special economic zones in South Africa, but they have not been working very well because we don't really know what they are supposed to do. The Chinese did that in order to attract technology from outside, and they had laws that was favorable to outside companies.
Yes.
We need to incentivize. The 7th recommendation is get our legislature to look at all our laws to see whether they are in accordance to the 4th Industrial Revolution. Now you have a company called Airbnb.
Yes.
I use it when I go to Toyando, where I come from. It's not completely in our tax regime because it operates from the cloud. It's an American company. But it's operating in South Africa. I'm not even sure whether we measure how much data is collected from South Africa by Facebook and tax it. If it was oil, we would tax it.
Yeah.
If data is the new oil, you better start taxing it. So for our lawmakers to be able to look at all our laws and update them, they need to be technologically literate. They need to understand what data means. They need to understand what AI means and so on and so forth. And the last recommendation is that as South Africans, we speak too much and do too little. So let us do. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
It's time for action. The time for speaking is over now. Because we have been speaking for so long that the world is leaving us behind.
I'd like to quote you just on that. You said, knowledge that is not implemented is not knowledge at all. Now, with all these recommendations, are they being implemented, or at the moment have they just been tabled but no action has been taken, to carry on from your last point?
No, I think in many ways they're being implemented. One of the things that we actually say in that report is that there is more knowledge in private hands than in public hands. You have more people in the private sectors who understand artificial intelligence than in government departments. You have more people in the private sector who understand data than in the public space. So now what do we do about that? What it actually means is that for these recommendations to actually be effective, all of us must lead. And I think that mindset that leaders are only politicians or people holding responsible offices, the sooner we get rid of that idea, the better. Societies that work are societies with leaders in all sectors of the economy. Whether it is in a neighborhood, somebody who organizes that on Saturday, young people go around the township and clean the township. That is leadership.
Yes,
so
sir.
all of us will have to implement these recommendations.
Wow. Now, you mentioned briefly where you come from, Thohoyandou, and I want to take you back a little bit. Now, from where you were born to traveling all over the world, in your book you mentioned a particular individual who you cite as your first engineering teacher. Can you please tell us about her?
Well, my grandmother couldn't read or write. She obviously did not understand modern engineering. She did not go to United States to do engineering, as I did. Nor did she go to Cambridge University to do a PhD in artificial intelligence, as I did. But she was my first engineering teacher.
Yes, sir.
She used to make clay pots, and she used to make mats. Now, making clay pots is actually a very sophisticated engineering endeavor. So I will accompany her to go to the river to collect clay. When I tell my sons, my children, about clay, they don't even know that you find it in the river. It has to be a wet place where the clay is.
Yes, sir.
And then she will go there and she will select the best clay. When I went to study engineering, that is what you call material selection.
Wow.
And then she will come and then she will then form a pot. When I tell my engineering students that they design a clay pot, they will say to me, give us AutoCAD software so that we can be able to design this thing. My grandmother did not even need that. She
Yes,
could
sir.
do all that, those things.
Yes, sir.
And after she has made the clay, she will put it in the sun so that it can dry. Of course, due to experience, she will know that once it is dry, you can't use it to cook because it is not strong enough. So she will put it in the furnace, and it will be so hot you could see the pot red hot. I can even visually still see it red hot, and then she will allow it to cool very, very slowly. That process of allowing things to cool slowly, you don't go and pour water on them while they are still hot, is what is called annealing. Boltzmann, an Austrian physicist, wrote a beautiful mathematical equation called Boltzmann equation. My grandmother understood that concept. She did not knew about Boltzmann, let alone about his equation. But she understood that whole concept. And after the pots are now have cooled down, she will knock each pot and listen to it. And she will tell me that if it rings for a long time, ooh, then it is a good pot. If it rings for a short time, it's a bad pot. So when I was doing engineering as an undergrad, they say, no, if it rings for a long time, it's a lightly damped structure.
Wow.
If it rings for a short time, it's a damped structure. My grandmother understood the concept, but she did not know what damping and certainly not in a modern way. Those are engineering skills. What does this teach us? It teaches us that there is so much engineering in our culture. It is unfortunate that we have allowed that great culture to disappear. Many of us cannot do half of the things that our predecessor, who used to be producers of the goods they consumed. I was talking to Mtokozi that one of the most interesting structure to study from a mechanic's perspective is that traditional Zulu hat. Oswald Mbuyiseni Mchali wrote a poem called Inside My Zulu Hat about that. And Oswald says it's like a hive without bees. That was the thing. So that whole structure is very complicated, and many of our young people will not even be able to make half as effective as that structure. We are forgetting about all that. That is engineering, part of our culture, but we are letting it all go.
Wow. What that brings to mind is the notion or the fact that, in Africa we have so much indigenous knowledge, indigenous wisdom, which then brings the importance of writing to the fore. Now, in writing this book, what was your process for aspiring, those who are aspiring to write books? I know each writer has their own process, but I believe if you share yours, somebody may get hints and notes on how to actually conceptualize and get to the finishing of the book.
You see, I have written more than 20 books.
Yes, sir.
And one thing that always bothered me quite a bit was that I would go to exclusive books and I wouldn't see these books. I can go. You can go to the website, exclusive books, and look at my books. And whenever I see them, because apparently you can order them, they will be like 4,000 rands per book. I'm like, these things is not even accessible to my people. I was always disturbed that I have to go to Boston or Cambridge, England, to see my books in the bookstore. So I said, how do I write a book that will be accessible to my people? A book that will be grounded in the culture that we all come from.
Yes, sir.
That will be dealing with issues that are important to us. Like, for example, I have a chapter on languages.
Yes, sir.
That Siri does not understand our languages. You can't go to Siri and start speaking in isiZulu. And there's something wrong with that.
Yes.
It means we have to create our own Siri. So that was the process. So after we have done that, I've thought about writing a book that is accessible. Then I had to close the gap. And the biggest gap to close here is how do you take artificial intelligence and explain it in such a way that my grandmother who couldn't read and write would be able to understand it. That was the approach. If I explained to it her the way I did, she would be able to understand it. Unfortunately, she's not here with us to be able to test my theories, but she would be able to understand it. Because I go out of my way to use things that are accessible, that we know about, to explain these concepts.
So for an upcoming writer or an aspiring writer, from a routine point of view, would you when you're writing, were you writing each day, each week? Did you have a particular schedule or routine in terms of the writing of the book?
Well, for me, writing is obviously quite easy if I know what I'm going to write about.
Yes.
I very often find that once I know what I'm going to write about, it becomes quicker. I have had multiple books in my head over a long period of time. I always say that when I produce a book in 2020, sometimes I've been thinking about that concept for the past 5 years.
Wow.
So, but one thing that I can say is that writing requires discipline. You have to be disciplined.
Yeah.
If you are a good writer in the morning, it will mean that you might have to wake up 1 hour earlier and be consistent about it.
Yes, sir.
Or if you are a late writer, you must be able to follow your schedule. I find that structure is quite good.
Yes,
you know. So sometimes books take a long time. Sometimes they take a short time. This one, the biggest difficulty was obviously to simplify the concepts.
Yes.
Once I had the structure of the book, what I'm going to write, Originally, I thought it was going to be 12 chapters. It ended up being, 25 chapters.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, wonderful. Now, your latest book, as I mentioned here at ULP, we love leadership, leading in the 21st century, the call for a new type of African leader. Now, when you talk of African leadership, there was the recent event with the elections in Uganda, where Museveni has been in power for, I believe, 30 years now. Now, that is the old type of African leader. Here you're talking about the call for the new type of African leader. What does this new type of African leader look like?
Look, I mean, there are many African leaders who have obviously inspired me. I'm quite inspired by the leadership of Madiba. I think he was a fantastic leader.
Yes, sir.
There's nobody like him. I'm inspired by the leadership of Paul Kagame.
Yes, sir.
I think he has built a beautiful country.
Yeah,
I am the chairman of the Africa Center of Internet of Things, which is a government agency in Rwanda. And I think that is more of a forward-looking leader. You see, one thing that really stuck in my mind when I was writing this book, and I quote in the beginning, the first African country to get independence was Ghana. And the person who became the leader of that independence in Ghana was Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, sir.
Educated man, was educated in the United States, was educated in England. As he was coming in, he said a statement that was powerful but weak at the same time. He said, and he was obviously paraphrasing what you would find in the Bible, our Bible. He said, "Seek ye first political kingdom, and all else shall follow."
Yes.
Unfortunately, the all else part did not follow. The economy, Africa's economy is a mess. The guns we are still silencing the guns even up to today. We have people who are drowning in the Mediterranean Ocean trying to go to Europe. You have the talented Nigerians who go to the West, never come back.
The brain drain.
Yeah, all this. Now, the question is, why did all else not follow? And then I talk about a concept called politicism. This culture of seeing leadership as only political leadership. United States work not because they have Joe Biden as the president. It probably works because they have Apple, they have Zuckerberg, they have Elon Musk, who incidentally is a South African,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
Yes, sir.
Leadership is everywhere. And all leadership sectors are important. Very, very important. So what Kwame Nkrumah probably should have said was, seek ye first education and all else shall follow.
Yes, sir.
Not political kingdom. And now I write this book, Leading in the 21st Century, and it has sections. The first section is about what is the 21st century going to be about? It's going to be about artificial intelligence. It's going to be about data. It's going to be about... So that's the first part. The second part is what I call mindset, shifting the mindset. I talk about mathematical thinking.
Yes.
Mr. Hadebe will know because he studied mathematics at the university. Thinking logically, being able to see structure amongst a whole lot of data and so on and so forth. Deng Xiaoping used to call that seeking truth from facts. Sounds very complicated, but that's a powerful statement. So, so that's changing the mindset. Ethical leadership. Being patriotic. Thinking about more than yourself. That's changing the mindset. Then I go to another section which is really about the global problems that we confront. Issues of energy, issues of water, issues of climate, and so on and so forth. Then the last section is about leadership lessons.
Yes, there's 11 of them.
Yeah, there are 11 of them.
Yeah.
And they are African leaders. Originally, they were supposed to be African leaders. But I couldn't help. I had to put Marie Curie. I mean, she's my favorite leader, she was from Poland, and she's the only person to win a Nobel Prize twice.
Wow.
In two different science disciplines, one in physics, one in mathematics. She's obviously the mother and father, because she is up there, of nuclear technology. But I have these 10 leaders, and these are very powerful leaders. Eric Mlobi,
Yes.
powerful leader. Richard Maponya, powerful leader. You can see the selection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Staying away from political leaders, because I think I had to have Kwame Nkrumah. I had to have Kwame Nkrumah. So I had to have Matleke, Charlotte Matleke, the first African woman to get a BSc degree. She got a BSc degree at Wilberforce University in Ohio, United States. I also studied in Ohio, United States. And the Wilberforce College that she founded here in South Africa still exists even today. That is when people start building structures that are bigger than themselves.
100%.
Charlotte.
Sibukwe as well?
Sobukwe, I mean, the professor. I mean, the professor was very, very smart.
Yes.
I watched this video on Cornel West. Cornel West is obviously We know him in Matrix with his afro. And then he says on this video, says, I went to South Africa and I asked my brother Madiba.
Yeah.
And I said, Madiba, tell me about Sobukwe. He's saying it with an American accent. And he said, Madiba just paused for like 3 minutes and said, that one. Sobukwe, we all know that at Robben Island, they isolated him.
Yeah.
We all know that in Parliament they had to have a Sobukwe clause, a law that was passed specifically for him.
Wow.
I mean, when you think about a law for an individual.
Yeah, powerful individual.
But a man who understood the value of education.
Yes.
Education not used for the advancement of society is no education at all. Yeah.
Now there's 11 attributes. I believe there are 11.
There are 11,
attributes
in my next book, there are going to be 50. And by the way, it's with the printers.
Oh, wonderful. I'll get the copy.
Yeah.
So there are attributes of leading in the 21st century. Can you take us through some of those?
Yeah. I think a leader of our time must read and must read widely.
Yes, sir.
If you don't read, you must not lead. Because if you are allowed to lead, you are going to lead us into temptations and deliver us to poverty.
No, we've got an author in the house, gentlemen.
No, the second attribute is literacy, ability to communicate, ability to read, ability to write. But literacy has evolved. Ability to understand technology.
Yes, sir.
Is really very much part of thinking. And then you have to be passionate about society to lead. You have to be passionate. You have to love people. You have to love development of people. You have to love creating opportunities for people. But you also have to build. So that is why I have engineering thinking, to build things that work. I always say that if you drive around our roads and you see a pothole, there you know the failure of leadership. That is a visual demonstration of a failure of leadership. In fact, that is a visual demonstration of a failure of nurturing engineering thinking into our leaders in our society.
Yes, sir.
And so on and so on. So those are the attributes. And then I also have, I think United States and China are very, very important.
Yes, definitely.
So a leader of today must understand them. We have to understand the Chinese developmental model. What are they up to? What are the strategies that they are adopting? What is the implications of these strategies on us? How do we? And then United States is another country that is very important. So that's why I actually take this. And then I have scientific thinking there. Why scientific thinking? Our problems require logic to solve. When everything is said and done, if we are not thinking logically, then we are going to make mistakes. And I'm going to put an example that I put on Twitter a few days ago about this thing about vaccines. Astra, the AZ vaccine, that is going to expire in April. And that does not work for a new strain of COVID. And somebody was saying, what do we do with this thing? I say, if they want somebody who can volunteer to take it, I'm available. Because I'm not even sure whether that strain has disappeared from South Africa. Nobody's telling us. Is that strain that it can be able to tackle still around? We have two strains in the country. And what is the implication of that? But what is very important, this is a good lesson for leadership. Viruses mutate. That is the nature of viruses. They mutate. So I understand mutation. So if I hear in 3 months' time that none of the vaccines, there's a new strain that none of the vaccines can be able to handle, I wouldn't be surprised. So in other words, we are solving a moving target. That mutation is moving things. It requires a certain type of leadership. What we know is that if we vaccinate 60% of our population, then we starve the virus from spreading, and then it will disappear. So for us to be able to do that, the vaccination must be very, very fast. I don't want to be vaccinated in 6 months. Because some of the vaccines only have 6 months shelf life. After 6 months, the people you've vaccinated today are now back. They require another new vaccination. So it has to be done very, very quickly. We have time. 2 months is enough to vaccinate people.
And it requires the right type of leadership attitude
absolutely.
to pull it through.
Scientific thinking is quite crucial.
Now, on COVID, you and Mtate Khadebe jokingly said COVID-19 has accelerated the technological process. So now people are no longer having these large meetings, everybody's on Zoom, there's all these new technologies that are being used. Has COVID-19 just accelerated? Somebody said it has taken 2030 and brought it to 2020.
Well, it has absolutely increased the digital literacy of our people. And my mother still lives in my village, Dutuni. Toyando is very advanced compared to my village.
Yeah.
It's very advanced.
Yeah.
I mean, she will be saying, can I Zoom you?
Oh.
She has a Facebook account.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, my mother is following me. There's a Facebook account.
Yeah.
And she's posting pictures. That's digital literacy.
Wow.
She can do so. She knows about FaceTime. She knows about WhatsApp calls. She can create a group on WhatsApp. This has been accelerated by COVID.
Wow.
COVID has made our people more technologically literate than before. But they need to understand the underlying technology.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we are in the 4th Industrial Revolution. So there are some questions coming from online. This one is from Mabel Matibela. And the question is, can Prof please share some light on how do we ensure that our communities are not left behind with the 4th Industrial Revolution?
I think we need to take ownership of our education. I don't know what, there is a spirit, some form of a spirit that has disappeared. In my village, we never had a high school. The chief said every house, 10 rands, that was in 1981, and they built a high school. They were taking education into their own hands.
Yeah.
What do we do in our communities? Let us take education into our own hands. Let us use our churches as sites for education,
Yes, sir.
as it has always been used. I mean, one thing that people don't appreciate is the role of churches in education. Cambridge University was a Catholic church. Was owned by the Catholic Church. Georgetown University was owned by the Catholic Church. So if you are living in a village, organize. Literacy classes must be organized by members of the community. When school go off, students go away, 6 o'clock, you organize literacy classes for members of our society who cannot read or write. You organize digital literacy for people so that they can be able to use technology. Organize. Don't wait for somebody else. Organize. Do it yourself.
Wonderful. There is another question from Hosiami Chetetlani. What advice can Prof give to our government regarding hiring global workforce, since a lot of companies are adopting the work from anywhere, not restricted to SA, which may lead to loss on tax as well?
No, absolutely. But it's also an opportunity. I mean, the whole industry, the call center. I mean, if you are in England and you call a bank, the person who is probably going to answer you is in India.
Yeah.
Why is that person not in Johannesburg? Why is that person not in Cape Town?
Yeah.
Why aren't we part of the value chain? There is a new industry that is emerging. It's called the annotation industry. India dominates it. In Africa, it's Kenya that dominates it. So basically what happens is that you have all this data that has been collected, and it needs to be labeled. So if it is data that was collected by Facebook, it will maybe be a data of a cat, and you will say cat. You label, you annotate. Why don't we develop? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why don't we develop it here? I think the global nature of commerce for us in South Africa, we should look at it as an opportunity, not as a threat. We should take advantage of it to create industries such as the annotation industries,
Yes, sir.
such as the call center industries, that do not necessarily exist in South Africa on a global scale.
Powerful. There's a question from Monli Mapalala. According to the Prof, what potential risks or gaps do townships face in the country's integration of a 4IR-enabled public service?
Well, I mean, is it the risk or the potential?
Well, risk/gaps, so pros and cons.
You know, every time I drive to Soweto, and I have a campus in Soweto, and I see young people roaming the street at 3 o'clock, at 9 o'clock during the day, that is a big risk. They are supposed to be in class. They are supposed to be in class. That is a big risk. The big risk in the township is that if we do not pay enough attention, we might be creating an underclass of people who are not attending schools. The second thing is digital literacy. What digital literacy are happening in the township? What is the city of Johannesburg doing in Soweto? Are we having dedicated classes where community members are invited, and then basic digital literacy is explained? Again, if we don't close that gap, our people are going to remain behind. Thirdly, the business opportunity. We are opening an innovation hub in Soweto.
Yes, sir.
At a place called Devlin. And by the way, thank you very much, Deborah Tehune. She is from United States, for a generous gift of more than 100 million rands to build that innovation campus of ours. It's a new campus. It looks absolutely beautiful. And what we want to see there is young people, old people with ideas, to bring them there so that we can commercialize them and create business opportunities. What we want to see there is to train people on skills that are necessary. A BMW, why should a BMW be serviced in Sandton, not in Soweto?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you service it in Soweto, then it means there are certain skills, digital skills, by the way.
Yeah.
Those machines that they put inside and then a diagnostic report comes out. All those things will have to be part of the education in our township.
Wonderful. From Tumi Sikete, urgent private/public collaboration is required, especially in the education sector, to ensure the incorporation of the 4IR concepts are embedded, particularly in government schools. The absence of this will see many of our people shut out from effectively participating in the future economy. I guess this is more of a comment, but can you elaborate or extrapolate?
No, I think that's a fantastic. All I can say is that's it.
Yeah.
We have leaders in our society, as you can see by
Yes,
the
sir.
comments.
Yes, sir. Wonderful. I believe there's another question from Mondi Patlele. What disruptions can be projected from the integration of 4R capabilities by government with regards to policies, capabilities, and the greater public?
Well, I think one of the big disruption that we can hope for is increase in service delivery. The 4IRs must be at the core of service delivery. We must have apps where you can be able to go and report leakages of our sewage.
Yes.
And somebody must be able to respond on quickly. Leakages of our water pipes with gallons and gallons of water being wasted, and so on and so forth. So there are many things that we can actually be able to do, and they can feed into the policy part. But I am not too much interested in the policy. I'm more interested in the practice.
Yes.
Because I think we have been doing all sorts of policies. I think the big gap is basically implementation.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's do this thing.
100%. Just on leadership, the Zondo Commission, where a lot of corruption and unethical behavior has been brought to the surface. What role can the fourth industrial revolution play in mitigating or preventing corruption and issues pertaining to lack of ethics?
I mean, you can use artificial intelligence to do lifestyle audits. I've written about that. You can use artificial intelligence to be able to detect corrupt activities, data analytics, and so on and so forth. Deploy technology to be able to monitor, to control, flow of resources, to report automatically, because if it is a human being, the human being might be afraid, but if it is a machine, then it becomes much, much easier. But most importantly, our people must hold their leaders accountable. Our people must hold their leaders accountable. A young man writes to me and say, can you donate money to build a library? I say, this is fantastic, but have you talked to your council, your councillor? He says, no. I said, no, man, these people are elected to serve you. If we do not create that mindset that these are your employees who are there to serve you, then we are not going to have a country that is accountable. And a country where the leaders are not accountable is not going to succeed.
Prof, we spoke about oil and indigenous wealth, and I believe you are one of the gems of this continent. Thank you for gracing us and for sharing your abundant wisdom. From the ULP Authors Forum team, we thank you so much. If we call you again, I heard you're writing another book, so we might call you back to discuss that book. But thank you so much. At this point, I'd like to hand over to our chairman to do the closing for us. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Well, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. Confidence, you started in the right way. Prof, thank you very much again. It's really wonderful to see the impact you have made in our nation. And I just wish maybe the next workshop that we should have at ULP is to take those recommendations out of that report. In fact, let me charge you, Theo. Let's get the recommendation. And I've heard you saying we must not wait for government to implement those recommendations. and then we discuss them as part of the ULP family, and then maybe also a part of the academic institutions that we're all now involved in, and see how we can actually get them implemented. And then the government leadership will support us, business will support us, because if we don't take this, we're going to lose it. I remember very well when you were talking about the call center. We are actually the right location to have been the epicenter of the call center. Geographically right, and our English is universal in terms of accent. But you're right. Even if the credit controller of Coca-Cola goes picked up by an Indian young lady, so we've missed an opportunity, and we can't afford to miss this one now. So what are we going to do about this? So I'm challenging every one of us. Let's get to work. We've missed the first revolution, the second one, the third. We can't afford to miss this one. So, Prof, we will, in some form or shape, work with you to make sure that we lead the charge in implementing. That's our biggest failure in this nation. We've got good policies, but we can't implement. So I thank you again. Thank you very much for sharing all your thoughts and on all this wisdom. And thank the online people that are really here right now.